The Denton-area team. So I suppose in one argument you could say that the Denton-area teams obviously had a good year. I mean, Geyer, Ryan, Argyle, they were all good.
Right.
They're good football teams. Krum had a good year. But probably not the ending. I think probably at least one of those teams, you probably all felt like they should be in the state title game at some point, especially Argyle and Ryan with the years they were putting together.
Yeah.
So how have those teams kind of processed not reaching the mountaintop where they've kind of gotten used to being?
Well, I think it was it's hard to differentiate the two, but I would say it was probably more of a shock to see Argyle lose like they did.
Right.
And what was that, the third round, I think?
Yeah, third round. Yeah, you figured it was going to be a good game, but to lose the way they did was pretty shocking.
They had Wiley's number before that, and they got beat pretty badly.
Yeah.
Obviously there's got to be coaches will never say that they have a bitter taste in their mouth 4 months later, but there's got to be something there.
Right.
And I'm sure they're always loaded, ready to come back the next year, and I'm sure they'll be a favorite to get back to the state championship game next year. With Ryan, it's funny, we've been talking for a couple of years now. I think last time I was on the show when I had the stomach virus.
Yes, when you were almost on. We were about to die.
Yes, I was about to die. We were talking about it was before Ryan played Allen, and they were undefeated, and y'all were saying that this was a year before Ryan was supposed to do this. Of course, that year was this past season,
right?
And of course, they were awesome.
Right.
They were in 5A. They dropped. That helped them. They get to the state semifinal, and Spencer Sanders goes down with the torn ACL.
Yeah.
Like, they still almost won the game with a third quarterback.
Right.
But they didn't. that's got to be a tough pill to swallow, to know that your best player, one of the best players in the state, isn't able to finish the game and help you get to this.
But I feel like we got like halfway through the season, and we realized the offense was the weak point. We always knew the defenses are going to be good, right? But it did feel like, they got Spencer. Like, it seems to be enough almost every game, and then he gets hurt, and you realize, they kind of did need him to do that.
I mean, they have really good receivers, but the thing they didn't have was much of a running game. They had Tyreek Davis, who's a really good running back.
He's playing two ways, though.
Yeah, I mean, he's a stud linebacker who's going to college to play linebacker.
Right.
So, you got to be careful with him on offense. And, with he wasn't in there, it was pretty much Spencer Sanders was the running game, which is great and all, but it's nice to be able to have something to offset that. Right. So, I don't know. It was just a weird kind of anticlimactic end to their season. It felt empty almost. It was just weird. I don't know.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Ryan then. So they lose so many of these players, right? And I guess first and foremost, let's talk about Sanders, because he did tear his ACL.
Right.
What's the expectation there? Will he be ready when the season starts?
Well, yeah. From what I've heard, talking with my colleague Newspaper Steve on Twitter, last time he did this 2 years ago too, or freshman year. Sorry.
Yeah.
He was back in 4 months, I think. Right. And this year he has a date circled on his calendar. Right. Apparently, I don't remember the exact date, but it's sometime in April, I think.
Okay. When
he expects to be full go, so 4 months again.
Okay.
I remember when ACL used to mean you were out for
a year and a half almost. Right. Yeah.
And he's defied that already once, so we'll see if he can do it again. And I'm guessing he probably can.
Right. But even with a date like that, you're like, oh well, another 3 months. He apparently doesn't even need those extra 3 months, and he still has them, so that's good. Okay, defensively, how much do they lose, and how much of a problem do you think it's going to be?
They lose pretty much everybody. Yeah. They're only returners. I think they returned 3, and they're all in the secondary, which is it's good. Yeah. But
they made a living off punishing people in the middle.
Seven, yeah, that's what they've always been known for. They were bringing back one guy, Dayton LeBlanc, who's a big run-stuffing tackle, really athletic. I don't know if you remember in that Highland Park game, he ran a fumble back like 80 yards.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
His dad was a coach at North Texas and got a job at Kentucky, so he's gone.
Not great.
Yeah, not great. They're gonna have to find a whole new front seven, which, if you're familiar with Ryan football, you know that in all these great teams they've had, the offense has been there and not been there. They've had some good offenses, they've had some really average, mediocre offenses, but the defense has always been there. So that's gonna, obviously they're gonna have a really good offense, but the defense is a big question. You just have to wonder if they're gonna be able to replace all those guys.
So you spend a lot more time around Geyer.
Yes.
They get a delta blow this offseason when Noah Kane is transferring to IMG.
Yeah.
How are they feeling? How's Coach Walsh feeling about this upcoming season with all the changes?
Obviously, you can't lose a guy like him and act like nothing's wrong.
Oh, it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically what Walsh will tell you. But,
Right.
It does hurt.
Right.
But I will say they've had consistently since 2008 one of the best rushing attacks in DFW. And they've done that with Noah Kane was going to be their first. I'll take that back. He was going to be their second Division I running back.
Right.
They don't usually have Division I guys.
Yeah.
It's their scheme. It's their offensive line. It's their strength.
Right.
They pride themselves on off season, and they're one of those programs. And it's going to hurt them obviously, but they've got 3 guys, and they just got a move in from Melissa, who was a freshman All-American.
Oh. Is that all?
Yeah, that's it. Whatever. His name's Kadrick Cobbs, I think.
Okay.
And
Name to remember.
yeah, I don't know if he'll be. They've got a senior who's supposed to be really good. I don't know if you remember Ellis Jefferson, the wide receiver.
Okay. Yeah.
It's his little brother.
Okay. All right.
But this sophomore to be will obviously play. I mean, he's already 5'9", 5'10", 195 as
Right.
a freshman.
Yeah.
I saw him the other day in the weight room. He looks ridiculous.
Looks the part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to have guys. They're not going to have a lead dog like Noah
Right.
Kane, but they're going to be okay.
They're also going to bring back something that a lot of teams at the 6A and 5A level don't have next year, and that's a senior quarterback.
Right.
With Luke Stillwell. I mean, they've got to feel pretty good about that, right?
Yeah, I think they do. Last year he had his ups and downs throwing the ball. They went into the season wanting to air it out, and they weren't able to do that because he wasn't there yet. This year he used to pitch on the baseball team. He's quit baseball. The coaches have said that that's really helped his just muscle memory of throwing a football versus pitching a baseball.
Right.
And he looks a whole lot better throwing the ball this year. He's huge. He's like 6'4", 200 pounds, and he looks like. I mean, he looks really, really good. He just looks the part. He's a big kid. He's probably the tallest quarterback they've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, he always kind of looked the part even when he was skinnier.
Right.
He felt like, oh, who's this kid? He's going to be pretty good.
So I think he's probably going to surprise some people this year.
Except you, because you watch him every day. But defensively, I mean, that's kind of the big thing, right? They lost a bunch, same as Ryan.
Yeah, they hung their hat last year on their secondary.
Yeah,
they were really, really good. 2 Division I safeties. That could do a lot for your defense, and they lost them both. They got a lot of spots to fill there, and that was their defense last year. I kept saying it might have been the best I'd seen at Geyer. The coaches argued with me. 2010 was better.
Right.
Stat wise, last year's was better, but that 2010 teams was really, really good. And they of course they went to the 5A state championship game their first year in 5A.
Yeah.
And lost to Cibolo still in a nail biter, but. It was definitely top 2 or 3 defenses in program history that they're going to have to replace a lot of those guys. So,
yeah, well, that's fun. We do have to talk about the one thing with both of those teams, the Make Them Play campaign.
Yes.
How did it even start? Just as a hashtag on Twitter? Like, is that as simple as it started?
No. I saw one day I was just on Twitter and I have TweetDeck and I have a Geyer thing. Everything Geyer. So I get a lot of Brandon Geyer stuff from the Cleveland Indians. I get a lot of people whose last name is Geyer. But there was a lot of trash talk from Ryan kids and Geyer kids. So why don't y'all play us? We can beat you. Ryan kids, we beat you last year.
Right.
Stuff like that, and it really picked up a lot of steam. The next thing you know, it's on the Frenchie's truck in Denton, which I don't know if you're familiar with Frenchie's, but it's a big deal. If you get on the Frenchie's truck, it's a big deal.
So Frenchie's is to blame here.
Yes, kind of. I think it's probably Frenchie's and myself. I kind of, I tipped y'all off to it. Y'all talked about it.
Right.
The kids ate that up.
Yeah.
The kids want to play.
Right.
And, I think they should.
I think they should too. It's fun. Local rivalries are always better. We're kind of spoiled in the DFW area, especially because there's so many. Right. But the way that area is growing, I feel like you should grab onto something like that while you have it, because who knows? In 15 years, both of those teams may not matter.
Right.
The way places grow is so weird.
Right. And I mean, they a little bit before I got to Denton, they built I don't remember how much C.H. Collins cost, but it was maybe, I want to say $12 million.
Yeah.
Which this was long before the $60 million. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
A big bond package pass. And these, they never fill that stadium up.
Yeah.
Why not open the season with Ryan versus Geyer? I covered the playoff game. They played the 4th round playoff game. They played at C.H. Collins. It was a day game on a Saturday. It was windy, cold, and there was not many empty seats there, and it was a blast. It was a really fun atmosphere, and it just seems like they should make the most of that and take advantage of it and play every year. I think probably next alignment they're going to be both 6A against.
They don't have choice. Yeah, right.
But,
until then, right. The other team, I know this isn't on your list because you don't cover them as much, but Denton did have a surprisingly great year last year by their standards. And the one thing I am always curious about, and I bet you can lend some insight to this, is how that area is growing. Is there a chance that Denton becomes a bigger power than they are right now because of the way things are growing, or is it just going to expand out and the newer high schools will get some more of those kids?
I heard somebody say a couple of years ago, I don't remember who it was, and even if I did, I probably wouldn't tell you.
Right.
I remember somebody saying that they thought Denton was going to be a better job than Ryan in like 5 years.
Right.
I don't know if that's true. It's hard to believe that because Denton is totally landlocked.
Right.
There's no expansion for Denton High. But I will say, Kevin Atkinson's done a great job there.
Absolutely.
That was the program. I was thinking on my way here. I remember 2008 or 2009. I specifically remember a game where Geyer played Denton and Denton suited out 17 kids.
Wow.
For a 4A, 4A, 5A football game.
Really?
Yes. It was insane. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, it was obviously a bloodletting. And,
right.
That program was in really bad shape. And Atkinson got there. I don't remember how they did the first year. I know they made the playoffs his first year, but they've won 9 games the past 2 regular seasons, I think.
I mean, they're relevant.
Yeah,
definitely. It's a big difference from the way things were.
So yeah, I mean, he's done a great job. They're going to lose a lot of people too this year. They had a few D1 studs
good players,
that are leaving, but that's turned into a respectable program again. Yeah.
It'd be fun if everyone in the area could be that good, because then you'd really have something with Denton. And I feel like with the growth towards Denton's, that might happen. At least seems possible.
Yeah.
The other big team out there, smaller school, Argyle. So they lose Dane Ledford, right? Let's start there. Like, they lose Dane Ledford, they lose their quarterback, he's going to Tulane. But I feel like they have enough pieces back to just point and say, look, this is what we do every year, and we'll be back in that conversation again.
Right. We were talking about before the show, that at Argyle, they've had some good quarterbacks, but it always starts with the running back. They had Nick Ralston. Before that, they had some guys, I remember a guy named Kyle Frizzell, I think, who was just kid that wasn't going to be a college star by any means, but he was a really good high school running back. They've had a lot of guys like that. Now they have a kid named Don Williams who rushed for 1,400 yards.
I was going to say somewhere in the teens. I can't remember.
It was a lot of yards. He's back. He's going to be his senior. They always have a good offensive line. They're losing a lot of linemen up front, but they always have good offensive linemen. And they always play good defense. You run the ball, you play defense. That's, as far as I'm concerned, that's the recipe for winning football.
Right.
And they always do that. Todd Rogers has a machine there. I mean, last year was the first time they hadn't been in the state championship in 4 years.
4 years? I was going to say 4. Yeah. It was crazy. And also with our, Abilene Wiley's going to graduate that great class that got them to this point. They'll still have some pieces, but you would have to look at that region now and be like, it's going to take someone taking a step forward to
There's a lot of uncertainty in that region, and I feel like I'll always bet my money on Argyle just because they always
consistently.
Reload.
Yeah. I like Brownwood. I think there's a chance that what they're doing with Maxfield could be pretty good, but we won't know, until it happens. But it does seem like you just go with the consistent winner there, right? You guys cover a lot of other teams: Aubrey, Lake Dallas, Krum, Pilot Point. Of those teams, which one do you think over the next few years really has a chance to sort of establish itself in this conversation with the bigger teams we talked about?
I'll answer that with a couple. From what I hear, Lake Dallas has. I never saw them play last year. They they went through 3 quarterbacks last year. They had a lot.
After that magical run the year before,
they were just absolutely ravaged by injury.
Okay.
But the third kid was a freshman last year.
Really?
Named Drew Sanders. He's a big kid. I think he's like 6'1", 6'2", 190 pounds.
Okay.
And from what I heard, I never saw him play, but I have a buddy who's an official who called one of their games, and he told me that he reminded him of Sean Robinson.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I don't know. Like I said, I never
Lofty
saw him
praise,
play,
but yeah.
But I know Coach Young is real big on him.
Yeah.
If you have a quarterback of that caliber, you can do a lot of things.
Sure.
Another school I'll mention is Aubrey. They've another coach who deserves a lot of credit, Keith Ivey. He took over. They won one game his first year. After that, the year before he got there, I think they went 0-10, maybe.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Yeah.
He gets there. They win one game his first year, then they win 7 and then 8. I think that's how it goes. I think this past year was his third year. They lost in the second round to a really loaded, athletic Jasper team. But they've got a good core of young kids, including one of the best names in our area, Gatlin Grisso. I mean, that's a name.
One of the better names.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's a two-way stud, running back, safety, had over 100 tackles, rushed for 1,300 yards. They have 2 1,000-yard running backs coming back next year.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah. So, they're going to be hurting for running backs, but they should be good again.
Yeah. Oh, then you still, like I said, Krum has been great. Coach Robinson's done a great job there. It seems like they're establishing themselves as a very good program. When they make the next leap is hard to say. They're going to lose a lot this year, obviously. Pilot Point is a weird one because, as we've pointed out on this show many times, they're better than they seem. They played the toughest schedule in the entire state last year in any class.
Right.
So it's hard to know how good they really are because what they went up against was insane.
These last 2 years in this district, they've 3 years, I guess. They've been really good. And they just get in that district and they always finish 5th. They're one spot out.
Right.
It's always by a tiebreaker, but they're always going to be competitive just because that tradition is kind of bred there. But about Krum, when Krum first started football, Krum and Ponder started football around the same time. Those are 2 traditional classic basketball powers.
Right.
And there was a lot of people in both those towns that didn't want football.
It's like Brock.
Right.
Same scenario.
Same thing that Brock had dealt with. And, Gary Robinson's never missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
First year of varsity football, they made the playoffs and got drilled by Salina in the first round. But, I mean, that's Salina. They made the playoffs. And, each year they've gotten better and better. This past year, I really thought they were poised to make a run.
It seemed like it, didn't it?
And, they kind of ran into a hornet's nest with Sweetwater, a team
Sweetwater
that they had beaten really bad.
Yeah, exactly.
2 years ago, and then Sweetwater kind of got them back.
Got hot at the
year.
right time.
Yeah.
Sweetwater was rolling through the playoffs, and I think surprised a lot of people.
Right. Krum loses a ton of seniors. 32 seniors, I think, out of like 38 kids on the roster.
That's a lot.
That's a lot to replace. So,
yeah.
We'll see what that program is made out of this year when they have to replace a lot of those guys.
You guys aren't hurting for storylines out there.
You,
Newspaper Steve, Jimmy Isbell, you've all got plenty to write about. Braswell did not do well last year, but I mean, it's just another team. It's another interesting project.
It's a whole new area of development. It's going to be interesting to see how they do. I tell you, I am a huge fan of their coach, Cody Moore. From what I've talked to him a few times. He's a really nice guy. Seems to know what he's doing. But I've heard from some people that I respect a lot that have said that he is a brilliant football mind, a brilliant offensive mind. He was the offensive coordinator at Rockwall under Rodney Webb.
Yeah.
And, they had those insane offenses.
It's a good tree. Yeah. Right? They know how to throw the football around.
Yeah. So, that's what he's trying to install there. He just needs to find a quarterback to do it. So that's always an issue.
It's complicated. Yeah. I mean, that's why we talk about Krum and we go, you're a new program. The fact that you have the right to be bludgeoned by Salina is a miracle, right? What happens with Brock is even more insane. So the fact that Braswell's a few steps behind, it's harder at bigger schools, too.
Yeah, bigger school, yeah.
Right.